This book contains names and stories of First Nations people who have passed on. At times, it also covers issues of a sensitive and traumatic nature. These are voluntarily shared by First Nations AA members active in recovery from alcoholism, using the 12 steps of AA and supporting others to do the same. So this is Lloyd's story. If you turn your back on AA, you turn your back on decency. I was born in Israel in the New England Ranges in New South Wales, Australia. I got my car and motorbike license on a Saturday afternoon in a very small country town called Gyra when I was just 13 years old. And on the same day, I had my first drink. I started shearing sheep as a teenager in the culture of hard work and hard drinks. By the time I was 8, I was a well-sought-after shearer, yet I couldn't walk down the street without getting pulled up by police for being drunk and disorderly. The sickest I've ever been, and I didn't know how sick I was because I was always drunk. I had swelled up on the left-hand side of my body and was rushed to hospital. There happened to be a liver specialist visiting Israel who removed a part of my damaged liver. It was a miracle that I survived all those years ago because I discovered that the doctor was an alcoholic visiting Israel for a break. Never had there been a surgeon of that caliber in such a small country town. As my life became more and more unmanageable, I jumped on the train to Sydney and went to an AA meeting in the old den. I heard a speaker share that he could add his life up with all these: pubs, pawn shops, police stations, and parks. I heard another member say, if you turn your back on AA, you turn your back on decency. Well, that's just what I did. And I was arrested for being drunk again. When I was 20 years old, I wanted to stop drinking, so I walked into the Leeton police station and asked for some fine in Jaffa. I was sentenced to a month in Goulburn jail. It was the shortest month I ever had to do because I was only locked up for 10 days due to a special Christmas release. When I got out, I had around 700 quid on me, so I got drunk again. By this stage, I was powerless over alcohol, and nothing could make me stop. The 4 P's disappeared from my life, all by one. Pubs went out because muggers would smack me in the head or kick me in the behind while I was too drunk to defend myself. Pawn shops were out. I had nothing left to pawn. Police stations went out because I used to seizure and a sister of mine died in the police cell. So I had 1 P left, the park. One freezing winter night, I needed somewhere warm to crash. So I asked the local sergeant at Gyra Police Station for a peg. When I got up in the morning, he wanted to have a chat with me. He said, I checked up on you last night and you're not a criminal, you're just an alcoholic. Calling me an alcoholic knocked the wind out of my sail. Not long after, I got to Tamil and was drinking wine when this well-dressed man swung onto me. His name was Dennis from Alcoholics Anonymous. I guess you would call him my sponsor. Back in the early days of AA in country Australia, a sponsor was someone who saw through you and then saw you through. And that's what Des did. He got me to 7 meetings in my first 5 days. I took my last seizure in his car on the way to a meeting in Armidale, 100 kilometres from Tamworth. I started to see positive change when I could finally sit back and relax in the car instead of worrying about having seizures. I learned how to live one day at a time by reminding myself of the following message. The young woman was thinking about marrying her love, but she started to obsess about all the washing up she was going to have to do throughout her entire marriage. This overwhelmed her. However, it made sense to me that this bride can make it through her marriage by doing one set of dishes at a time. The team of AA members were very supportive and encouraging in my early days. One day they turned up with a gift. It was a wrist watch. I was so grateful for the watch that I wore it every single day. Around 2.5 years sober, my watch kept stopping. I would march up to the local jeweler store and ask him to fix it. He would fix it for me, and a few weeks later I was back again, asking him to fix it again. The jeweler explained to me that all I needed to do was wind the watch when it stopped. This is when it dawned on me that I was not as well as I thought I was. My nerves were still shot, and my brain was still foggy. I knew to settle down. I didn't turn into a daily drunk overnight, so I shouldn't expect to completely recover overnight. During my drinking, I was disqualified for life for holding a car license. But within 5 years of attending AA, I was able to get my license back and hold a good touring job again. My first car in sobriety was a Ford Landau. I was too scared to drive before it, so I would hitchhike to AA meetings all over New England, Tamworth, Moree, Inverell, Glendennis, Gunnedah, and Armidale. I did this because I was told that AA is like soup. If you just put a spud and an onion in, it won't be so good. But the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. I've worn a few cars out traveling to AA meetings and taking a lot of newcomers with me, just like Des and the Mammoth Mob did for me in the beginning. It's important for me to give away in AA what was so freely given to me. About 25 years sober, my young fella, Wally, was in a very serious road accident where he had to be airlifted by the Westpac rescue helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle. He remained in a coma for over 3 months. My gut was in such a knot that I felt like drinking, but thank God I was able to tell myself that picking up a drink was not fix the problem. After lots of prayers and overwhelming support from the AA fellow, Wally woke up. When it was time for him to go home, the nurses and doctors lined the corridors to see him off. The chief medical officer said during his farewell speech, "Never had we had so many inquiries for a single patient in this hospital. But gee, your friends have some weird names. We've had inquiries from Wallaby Jim, Ricky Jack, Sancho Jimmy, Watkins Spike, names belonging to some characters in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have travelled through other countries in sobriety and be sure to always include meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous wherever I go. I can take holidays anytime, but I must never take a holiday from my age. I keep things very, very simple. I don't like to educate myself above my own intelligence. I've seen people tear themselves inside out with too many books and too much knowledge. I've seen a lot of well-meaning members come in years after me and rise up and but I've also seen a lot of them fall too. mostly from confusion. It's the first drink of the epidemic, and remembering this has kept me sober for over 50 years. Most importantly, I'm happy to be sober. I like waking up thinking, I wonder what I'll do today instead of dreading what I did yesterday. I've had many excuses and reasons along the way to pick up a drink, but I keep remembering that picking up a drink will not fix any problem. It's easier for me to stay sober than it is to stay drunk. No matter if I crawled or begged, I couldn't stay drunk. I've been managing to stay sober without having to beg or crawl for anyone. I do have a higher power in my life, but I don't like to talk about God too much. I prefer to talk to Him. I know He's the reason I'm sober today. I live one day at a time, trying to practice the spiritual guidelines of Alcoholics Anonymous. Spirituality to me is a kind word, thought, or deed towards other human beings. Lloyd. Thank you.